Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Kama Speaks. And today I am speaking with Edward Womack. He is an author, he's a motivational speaker, he's a trainer, and he's an author of a book that we'll be getting into called Back from Broken, which I'm really excited about because I'm sure a lot of people need to hear about that. So thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you for having me. Excited
I
about this opportunity. I've been giddy all day.
Well, that's good because I have been too. I love to interview. I love to interview people that are especially in the field I'm trying to get into, which is motivational speaking. I love to be able to speak and help someone. And I realize the subtitle of your book is Happy, Joyous, and Freed, correct?
That is so true, and it is a reality. Today I am indeed happy, joyous, and free, but it ain't been that way all along.
All right. Well, we're going to get into that. But before we do, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Outstanding. So I am Ed Womack, the Life Transformer, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, where I currently am the single dad of three beautiful daughters. And I am also an aspiring business owner and entrepreneur. So I'm a pretty busy kind of guy.
All right. Yes, yeah, that you said you're an upcoming or wait, what did you say? Business owner? You're working towards
Business
becoming.
owner. I am, and I wanted to jump in when you were saying you're an aspiring motivational speaker. You are a motivational speaker, comma, already, just by virtue of doing this show.
Okay.
Because you inspired me by wanting to be here. But I am an entrepreneur. I am a business owner of T.I.P.S Academy, which stands for Training Important People to Soar. And I really came into that because I realized it was my purpose, it was my rent to pay for being on this planet was to serve others. And so what I've been doing for the last year and a half is really trying to nurture that through interacting with younger kids. My primary focus is men. I'm trying to help them realize that there's value and greatness in each and every one of us, regardless of whether you're an athlete, an entertainer, and really trying to not so much dispel but downplay that whole I want to be a professional athlete, I need to be an entertainer to be important. At T.I.P.S Academy, we want to make everyone feel as though they're important. So that's what I've really been trying to get going of late, is to really help people realize their greatness.
Yes, we got a lot of boys, a lot of men out here that young men out here that feel like that's the route to go. And what you just saying that my son, he plays on the football team with a young man, and they lost their playoffs this weekend. And one of the boys said, he's a great football player. He said, "Well, I'm just going to go back to the hood because he doesn't have a scholarship to go anywhere." And it saddens me because he has so much great talent, and he feels like, I guess, only the streets is where he can go. So if someone such as he was to come to you and talk to you, what are some tips that you can actually give him to motivate him and inspire him to find that purpose that's within him, to bring it out and actually be able to give, I'm sure he can help many people with just the way he's feeling, or even moving on to school. So he sounds like somebody that would be perfect for what you're doing.
He certainly does. And before we get off tonight, I certainly want his email or phone number or some way to contact him, because what he obviously has is what a lot of men include experience was perhaps that lack of self-worth. Because before you can really realize what your value is, what your purpose is, you have to realize that first and foremost, what is it that I really want? And for me, just to kind of keep the focus on myself and hopefully help some of the viewers, and certainly want to reach out to that young man. But what I try to help people understand is through several years, 30 plus years actually, I walked around with this outward appearance as though everything was fine. Grew up a baller as well, coming from the city of Detroit, and had a lot of people that knew me, a lot of people even that would say, oh, I want my kids to be like your kid. And I'm like, really? If you only knew. And we'll get into a little bit more of why I say that. But, you know, what I think the young man would need, or any young man coming up in this society, first of all, there's a lot of societal pressure
Hmm.
to be a man in today's society. And because of the influences that we see on TV, so first of all, I tell him, turn off that television and get with some real vision.
Yes.
Because, you know, it was someone that I looked to as far as quotes that said, you know, it's better to be blind than to have sight with no vision. So what is
Mm.
I'm hearing as you're explaining this gentleman is that he's seeing things around him. He's experiencing different activities. He's experiencing different exposure to stardom and that glitz and that glamour. And what it seems like is perhaps he's, you know, judging himself in contrast to those things, as opposed to really being able to say, you know what, I may not be a all-star athlete, I may not be an entertainer, I may not be a rapper, I may not be some big business tycoon, but what I found was I have a gift that is all mine. So I certainly try to, you know, work with him, trying to first of all understand him, because what
Yeah.
has probably happened is that he's been neglected, not necessarily on purpose, but perhaps there is no male figure in his life that he
Mhm.
can look to other than, you know, those athletes that he's around or that he's exposed to. There's no one around to pour into him and let him know that you were placed on this planet for a purpose. We all were. And, you know, I'm so encouraged when I hear that there's people out there that are looking for an understanding of who they are. And a lot of times, because of the stigma that is placed on us as men, and having come out of that myself, we're supposed to be hard. We're
Mhm.
supposed to just keep it tight and keep things moving.
Right.
But the reality is, sometimes if we don't have someone or something to pour into us, you know, we just, like dude said, I'm just gonna go back to the hood. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, the statistics say that about 70%, less than 70% of people ever move outside of the area in which they were grown up in. So if that's the only vision that you're exposed to, you can't really have a worldly vision. You don't have opportunity to understand what else is out there.
Yeah.
So I would certainly encourage him, and I do seriously want to connect with him if possible. And he may
Okay.
be like, dude, whatever. But at the same time, I know that the only reason I was able to really make it out was because my coach in high school, um, he really poured into us as men as well as athletes. And that was a big, big, big deal for me because as I was going through my personal chaos when I was growing up, contrary to what it looked like on the outside, I really didn't have a lot of encouragement outside of athletics. So I can certainly relate to what the young man is talking about. But I also know that my parents exposed me to things that I didn't understand at that time. So I was really fortunate. I had both my mom and dad at home physically.
Yeah.
Emotionally, they weren't both there all the time, but they were physically there. And so daddy kept his foot in the derriere and also, you know, made demands on us. And this gentleman may not have had anybody like that, good, bad, or indifferent. So we'd certainly love to reach out to him, like, just to tell him that, man, don't give up on yourself because you so much that you got inside of you.
Yes, you know, and it really saddens me because of the talent, but I believe even just we're going to get into the book
Hmm.
back from broken. I mean, that's where a lot of us come from. That's a place where many of us come from because I did grow up in a home, two-parent home, and mom and dad there for me emotionally, physically, everything all around, great childhood.
Hmm.
And went into a bad relationship, a bad marriage, and I'm recovering. I'm still recovering from it, and that was 4 years ago. But I'm able to now see the light of things. But I was broken, so I want to talk about that. How did that even come about?
Awesome, awesome. So back from broken came about as a challenge. to me. And my little brother had already known that I wanted to be a motivational speaker. And I went to him. I said, "Man, nobody knows who I am. How am I going to get my stuff out there? I'm not a major, player." He said, "Well, write a book." I'm like, "Write a book? Okay." And at the time, I was actually on a journey coming back from addiction to crack cocaine for about 18 months. And what I came to realize during that time of being addicted to cocaine, once I arrived at a moment of clarity, what I realized was that the use of crack cocaine, marijuana, drugs, and alcohol was not my real problem. My real problem was something much deeper, much earlier, that had happened much earlier on in my life. And so I have been motivated to write Back from Broken because I really wanted to heal. And a lot of times, come to you and they suggested to me, in order to get that stuff out of you, you need to write it. So the book actually did not start to be a book. It started to be a tool of healing for me to get some of that garbage out of me. And I started writing it because I was a part of a 12-step program at the time. And one of those steps suggests that, you write out your personal inventory. So I was doing that. And as I was doing it, I got this like, it was like God was sitting right next to me. He's like, "You must use this to help other people." And I was like, okay. And so wanting to be a motivational speaker, I said, well, but how am I supposed to reach it? It's like, dude, stop making excuses.
Yeah.
You have every reason to help someone else. I attempted to commit suicide when my lovely twins, who are now 17, when my ex-wife was pregnant with them, I attempted to commit suicide because I was just that miserable with myself. And I thought I had it, and I'm a chicken. I'm not into pain, so I'm being smart. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna drink me some antifreeze, and then I'm gonna get on up out of here. And so I went to a forest preserve in Chicago, and if you're familiar with Chicago, it's a really dense, or there are forest preserves that are really densely wooded. So I drove deep, and thinking, okay, nobody's gonna find me. I'm gonna drink my antifreeze, and I'm out of here. And by the grace of God, he wouldn't let me out of here. I'm like, dude, really? I can't even kill myself? So after that, as though that wasn't enough, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I made it through that, and I made it back to my apartment. And at that time, my wife was then, God rest her soul, she was pregnant with my twins. And I'm not proud of that by any means, but it was a situation where I realized I'm lost. I don't really know who I am. I mean, I was willing to try and actually take myself out. And, I mean, it was because I didn't have the right car. I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to do on my job. I was a great husband, provider, emotionally bankrupt, but I was a great provider. And I was like, okay, I'm sick of this. I just want out of here. And he was like, nope, not letting you go. And so that is when I really came to be honest with myself, because the lies that the most important lies, or the most difficult and challenging lies that we tell, are the lies that we tell to ourselves. And everybody else around me saw the brokenness. I didn't admit it. I'm like, I ain't got no problem. It's the rest of y'all that's jacked up. Right. So, and that was difficult to really say that, okay, I have a problem. Mm-hmm. And that was really the first time that I was able to really take a step back. And, I'm sure there's somebody out there that's listening today that may have been in a situation where they were doubting themselves, that they were shameful or guilty of something that had happened to them in their past. I'm positive of it. But what I'm here to hopefully assure you is that on the other side of that, there is indeed some recovery. There is indeed some redemption. There is indeed more to life than whatever your situation is right now today. And I refuse to, give into it. So once I was able to actually get that moment of clarity and sit and figure out who I was for real, not what everybody else thought I was. And for so long, I allowed the opinion of others to formulate the opinion of me. I allowed the possessions to formulate who I was. I allowed the positions that I had to determine my worth. And that was so wrong. So, I know there's somebody out there that's listening that's really stuck in that same trap. And so when I started writing Back from Broken, again, it was merely to try and start my own personal healing. But during that was when I really realized that you have a gift. You have something that you must share, or else your life will never be right. And I remember
Right.
my mom growing up, my mom used to tell me, she said, well, if you can't look, no matter what you do, you should be able to look yourself in the mirror and be happy with what you see. And not the outward appearance, but they say the eyes are the windows of the soul. And
Mhm.
so I was like, I ain't looking up in there. And but once I finally came to an understanding of what the real problem was, I went to like almost 2 years of inpatient therapy, which was phenomenal. And as an African American, that's just not typically something that we subscribe to. And it was the best thing that I ever did. I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can bring it in a way that's more receptive, that's more palatable, and help people understand. Because I share in the book, I was a victim of something that happens in 9 out of 10 homes in America. And I was sexually violated by my brother from another mother, literally, in my dad's previous marriage, and
Wow.
that just really had been suppressed for years because the place that I should have felt the most safe, I wasn't. The
Right.
place that I should have felt the most secure and had the most confidence, that wasn't true. The place that I felt that should have been my safe haven, when all hell was breaking loose everywhere else, that should have been a place of refuge, and it was not. But what I learned from that was I was not at fault, and it took a while once those tapes that had been suppressed started
Mhm.
to bubble to the top, and they eventually exploded. And
Right.
that was really why I had turned to alcohol, why I had turned to drugs, why I had turned to trying to find my pleasure in women, why I had turned away from all of the principles and good training that my parents had instilled in me for those things just to have a good feeling. And that
Mm.
good feeling was temporary. So that's how Back from Broken kind of came about. Was out of one, being grateful for making it out.
Mhm.
Two, that's really what happened. I was tore up from the flow up. Although I was fly on the outside, but I was tore up on the inside.
Wow. That's some powerful stuff. I mean, being going through all that and still being able to stand here and talk and share your story, because a lot of men aren't going to share some of the things you just shared about being violated, and some of the things that you went through. And even with the therapy, us as black people, we're afraid of it. And that was me too. I had to start going to therapy recently because there was some things I was still dealing with. And now I'm telling everybody, you need to go to therapy. Probably end up making my therapist so much money because I'm like, you need to go, you need to go. But with both things you do, you have to recover from it. And thank God you've recovered from it. And someone said on my show a couple of weeks ago, and my pastor said it yesterday when he was preaching, we are here on purpose, and we need to understand that. And once we understand we're here on purpose, we need to understand what our purpose is. And the name of this show originally was called Pursuing Your Passion. And I tell people, when you pursue your passion, you're going to find your purpose. So whatever your passion is where your purpose is. And when it comes together and God has it for you, you just start blowing up all over the place. Things are just happening and just falling in place because now you're walking in your purpose. Everybody has a purpose, and everything has a purpose. We sometimes wonder, what's the purpose of a cat? I hate cats. That's just me. Probably cat people won't want to watch my show anymore because I don't like cats. But I like lions. But I'm like, what's the purpose of a cat? But they have their purpose, So, we do
Absolutely.
have a purpose, and you went from being from back from broken, and you put happy, joyous, and freed, and I think that's like that is so great. Now, what are some things that you're out there pushing, you're doing to help get your word out about your book and to help motivate others?
Absolutely. So before I go there, though, I want to help you understand how the transition occurred from Back from Broken, or being
Yeah.
broken, to being happy, joyous, and freed.
All
Because I
right.
think that's really critical for our audience tonight to understand. And it's a
Yes.
very common, it's nothing that you haven't heard before. It's very common. In fact, I had this obsession with fear.
Yes.
And I mean, some of us have heard the old acronym is false evidence appearing real, but I stumbled across fear in a form of a choice recently. And that's what I'm really been using and trying to encourage people, because that's one of the most common elements that hold a lot of us back is fear. Fear of going for that job promotion, fear of going for that new relationship, fear of stepping outside of our comfort zone to really challenge ourselves and realize the things that are important to us. So what I found in that choice was there's two acronyms. You can forget everything and run. So go crawl into that little hole and just continue to allow life to just happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can face everything and rise. And that was such a revelation for me and for those that I try to encourage and work with, is first of all, you got to make the choice, because no amount of motivation, no amount of inspiration, no amount of collaboration is going to help you until you make the decision, I'm done. I'm done with this fear thing and I'm moving on.
Yes.
So that has been what the key element of helping me move from broken to being happy, joyous, and free.
Mm.
Now, what am I doing today to actually help others? I'm a mentor at my church. Love my church, love my church, love my church, love my church. Um, they are so awesome, and they do so many things in the neighborhood, and one of which is mentoring young men, which is why when I put my business together, I decided, okay, yep, that's the focus I want. But the problem or the reason behind that wanting to be a part of nurturing men is a statistic that I saw. I recently went to a show that was being hosted by Morehouse College and BET, and the title of it was Restoring the Narrative of the African American Male. And there
Mm.
were like 10 or 12 really awesome, powerful dudes on stage, and the key element or the common thread that was being discussed was, what are we going to do about this prison industrialization mentality?
Mm-hmm.
Did you realize that you can actually buy stock in the prison system? It's big business. They are looking at your third grade
Yes.
scores, standard scores, to
Yes.
determine where they're going to build prisons. The
Yes.
reason that it's now a stock market commodity is because you can get the labor of those prisoners at a much cheaper cost, and the neighborhoods in which they're building them in, they're encouraging the constituents, or baiting them, if you will, not encouraging them, but baiting them by saying that, well, if we can keep your cost of labor down and also realize a benefit financially, we'll pay you. But the clause is, even if you don't, we still have to pay you. So they have an obligation, believe it or not, to keep the prisons filled. There were two judges recently that were arrested and charged for taking kickbacks,
Yes.
for actually padding cases, and I'm like, really? That's I'm offsetting that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
single-handedly, I'm going to offset it. But it was so many others that have paved the way before us. Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Miles Monroe, who just passed away recently and very tragically, that have poured into men and poured themselves into society for so long. There's so many others, but I
Yes.
felt as though my purpose was to contribute in a positive way to make a difference. When I
Mm-hmm.
die, I want to be able for people to remember me as, he did something to uplift our people. He did something to help people move forward. He did something to help people realize their worth. And I was actually encouraged by that by my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was amazing because it wasn't until my dad passed that I came to this realization. Now, my dad was an awesome provider. My dad was major academic, an executive in the Detroit Police Department. Eventually, after he did 25 years in the Detroit Police Department, decided he wanted to go be a chief of police, and he did that. So just an awesome, achieving guy. So I saw success. I saw what it was like to be accomplished. But there was this emotional void that was there. But what I was going to that point to say that when he passed, the most impressive thing that I heard at his funeral and saw there were people bursting out the seams of this church, and every single person that got up to speak about him, the common thread they said was, he was so helpful, he guided me, he mentored me, he helped me. I'm like, who y'all talking about? all he did was put his foot in my behind. But I now realize that had he not, kept his foot in my rear, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it's that fuel that drives me to do what I do. So part of why I do what I do today is, one, so that hopefully big fella, aside from God, is up there smiling that, hey, he finally got it together. He's doing the thing. He's doing it in service of others.
Yes.
I also try to engage myself in continual study, because the reality or the unfortunate thing that a lot of people think is if you're a trainer, you know it all. And that's not true. I have to try and keep myself sharp. And I had this friend tell me, he said, young buck, if you're the smartest person in the room, you might need to find another room. And I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. And the reason he said that is because if you move yourself in certain circles and you're looking to grow, you're looking to move to the next level, if you're an eagle but you're squandering your time with turkeys, you will never soar the way you're intended to. And so that's not to be derogatory, but that's to be used as a metaphor for, you have to extend yourself, fake it till you make it, and it's okay to fake it till you make it, but learn as you're going. Stop allowing excuses to get in our way. A lot of us, we procrastinate, and that's one of my primary messages is stop with the excuses. I was recently encountering a couple folks that, that are like, oh, I can't do this, or I don't have enough opportunity, or I don't have enough exposure, I don't have enough education. And I'm like, you talking to the wrong person. I've worked for some of the largest software companies in the world, and I don't have a college degree. Now, most people I don't go around broadcasting that. I guess I just did, though, huh? But most people don't know that, and I don't, wear it on my arm. I'm self-taught, but I've worked in some of the largest companies on this planet. I've traveled extensively abroad and domestically, so I'm not with the excuses. But one of the things that I realized, and what an example that I use, is there was this Oprah show that I was watching, and there was this, particular day, there was this uproarious explosion of applause and just, excitement out of the absolute norm. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, she's introducing this guy. And it's like, oh, he's an international motivational speaker. He's gone to every planet, every country on the planet, and trying to book him is almost impossible. If you don't have him already booked, you probably won't be able to get him for 6 months to a year. And I'm just like, wow, okay, cool, awesome, dude, that's what I'm talking about. And then he introduced this guy, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh my God, all my excuses are over. There's no more excuses, period. And the reason being that this particular gentleman was a guy named Nick Vujicic. And Nick Vujicic doesn't have any arms or legs.
Wow.
No arms, no legs. He's an international motivator, travels the planet, and if there's anybody who had a right or justification to have excuses, it would have been Nick. And after I saw that image and I saw the impact that he was having, I was like, okay, I'm done with the excuses. This is full speed ahead. And I didn't have a bunch of money, but I'm like, I'm going to do this. And so T.I.P.S Academy is starting to make a little noise out there.
All right.
And T.I.P.S stands for Training Important People to Soar. That's the acronym, which was created in honor of my beautiful daughters. Their names are Teresa, Imelda, and Patricia. And I wanted to expose to them how entrepreneurship worked and give them some options and give them some exposure. And and it's working because they contribute to my content. One of them calls herself my fashion consultant. It's like, okay, baby girl, am I tight? Am I ready to roll? She's like, yeah, you good, man. And some days if you're like, nah, you can't do that. But I actually engage them. Not only for my wardrobe, but I do when I create stuff, I pass it by them to engage them in that process. And
Yes.
I've got one that's now saying she wants to be a marketer. I'm like, okay, hurry up, because I need some help.
Yes. Yes.
But so that's kind of some of the stuff that's going on with the T.I.P.S Academy.
Well, that's great, and then especially to have your children involved and your young girls involved to be able to help daddy. That means, I know how that relationship is. I have a great relationship with my dad, but
Awesome.
he's a worker, so he goes, he has his 9 to 5, he does his thing, but I know how that is. I want to kind of comment on what you talked about, the guy at Oprah, Nick. I actually, part of my real estate board, there's a guy there, and he has no legs, no arms. He actually everything stops at the kneecap and then at the elbow. But I admire this guy because he has his chair, he drives, he's walking around, he's talking like he's making things work. And when I see him, he doesn't even know how much of an inspiration he is, because I said, why do we make excuses of why we can't do anything? This man, he doesn't have these. This is not, he just has, this is what he is, stops here and here. He doesn't have this part of his arm. But he keeps going and nothing's stopping him. He's talking on the phone. He's our computer tech guy. I mean, he was carrying the computer, and I'm like, why do we make these excuses? What if God was to take all that away from us? Then what? Then what are we going to do? So when I see him, it's just like, my goodness, we have no excuses. In 2013, on my vision board for 2013, it said, no excuses, just results. Period. No more excuses. We can't make all these excuses of why things can't be done. It just doesn't. They've taken all the excuses out.
Absolutely.
So, but great job with what you're doing, and we're going to be wrapping things up. And before I do so, I want you to leave something with my audience of, maybe a word of inspiration, and then also how they can get in contact with you, any update events that are coming up. Let us know
Okay.
what's going on with you.
Absolutely. So, so first of all, before we get up out of here, and your copy's in the mail, but this is the book. It's
Right.
Back from Broken, Happy, Joyous, and Free. And for the first 5 people that go to www.thetips with an S academy.com. Again, that's www.thetips with an S academy.com. I will give you, if you download, you are going to have to leave your email and your name, but if you download the 5 reasons to turn your failures into success, it's a free download. And I'll get an email once you download that. So you'll get 2 bonuses this evening. You'll get a free copy of that document, and I'll also send you a signed copy of Back from Broken.
Oh, wow.
You can also connect with me on Facebook at the T.I.P.S Academy. I'm on Twitter, not so much, but at the Ed Womack. And the primary place to keep in touch with me and find out what's going on is Facebook and on my website. A couple of upcoming events, which I'm super duper excited about. The 100 Black Men of DeKalb have officially said enter in for the Youth Summit of 2015. So that's coming up in February. And
Wow.
I am so excited about that, because last year we had about 600 people, and I went in as an attendee. And I'm like, oh, I want to be on stage. I want to be on stage.
Let's
And
see.
one of the guys I served with actually was elected president. So I'm like, oh, I'm in this year. So he hooked me up. And I feel like I'm worthy, because I'm actually, for the first time in my life, I feel like I am truly in alignment with my purpose. So I am so excited about that. There's a couple of other small things that are going on, but everything to me right now, I'm just so grateful to be able to extend myself. And what I'd like to leave everybody listening.
Before you say anything, nothing is
Uh-huh.
small. Nothing is small. So
Nothing.
everything you get is a huge opportunity. So nothing's small at all. So don't say that.
Ex-Nade from the universe, thank you so much for the reminder. And when I drop this next nugget on you, you're going to be like, how did he even let that drop out there? So you are so right. So what I love to leave with our viewers this evening is one of my favorite mottos is good, better, best. We can't let it rest until our good is our better and our better is our best. We'll see you at the top now, because the bottom's entirely too crowded, and greatness is in you. And thank you so much, Kama, for having me this evening.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I was waiting for more. Thank you. That was great. That was wonderful. But my hat's off to you because you are going after our young males, and that's what they need because a lot of them don't have the father figure. The mothers are trying to be the dads, and I feel like that's where we're failing sometimes because we try to play that father role, and that is not our place.
Mhm.
I am raising three
Correct.
children by myself, and I am not trying to be the father. I always say I am not the father. I am the mother, and that's it.
Mhm.
And I thank God for my dad and men around me that they can go to him
Absolutely.
for help. But you're doing a wonderful job, and it looks like you are soaring. You are just moving up. So congratulations with what you're doing. Keep me posted with what you're doing,
Absolutely.
and I'll keep following you on Facebook. And for those that are watching, make sure you get your free copy. I can't wait to get mine. I've just
Absolutely.
into reading thanks to Les Brown. He's phenomenal, and he talks about these books. He reads like 3 to 5 books, something like that, or more a week.
A
When I'm
month.
barely get,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm barely getting through one in 6 months. But I've been doing better. I've read quite a few this year. I did pretty good this year, and right now I'm reading As a Man Thinketh. So I'm really excited about
Oh,
that.
that's good. That is
You
so good.
you read it?
I have. I have. That is
Okay.
so good.
I'm
Keep
excited.
rolling on your journey and keep doing what you're doing, Kama. You are doing phenomenal as well.
Thank
And
you.
the top is calling you. Come on up.
I'm on my way. I'm going. I'm on my way up. I'm moving. I am moving. So for those
All
that
right.
thank you so much, and make sure you follow Ed on all of his social media, and you'll be able to click below in the description of this in order for you to add or to like his any business pages that he has or follow him on Twitter. And if you want to follow me, I am on Comma Speaks on Facebook, YouTube. I think I changed my YouTube to Comma Speaks. I hope it worked, but if not, it's for Sale by Comma. And I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, all under Comma Speak. So make sure you follow me. If you have any questions for me, you can also go to comma at commaspeaks.com or go to info at commaspeaks.com. I would prefer that one. Go to info at commaspeaks.com if you have anybody that you think will be great for the show and be able to help other people pursue their passion and go after their dreams and their goals. Or if it's you that's going after your dreams, your goals, you have a product, you're a motivational speaker, you're a trainer, whatever it is that you do, contact me so we can get you on the show. So for everybody that's watching, again, make sure you go to thetipsacademy.com and put your email address to get your book. Remember, it's the first 5 people. Otherwise, no matter what you do in life, always pursue your passion. Have a good one.